Welcome to the K-Fic Cafe. It is I, your host, JT.
NJ.
And this week we have a special guest with us joining us here on our recording. GotNoJams 0613.
Oh, hi everyone.
Hey.
I guess you can call me Mark.
Anything else you want to add? Anything you want us to know about you?
I guess I live in London and I like Twice a lot.
Don't we all?
That's pretty much it, to be honest. I'm a simple man.
That being said, he's just joining us this week as he has been the one who has been running our Discord server. He's the one who set it up, helped get everything in place, and he's been very interactive and just been chatting along a lot with everybody up on the server. So it's great to finally meet you, Mark, and thank you for the server.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Now for this week's topic, because Jay and I have just started college, and especially for me, it's going to be very, very, very hectic this semester. We have decided to do our best to limit everything under 30 minutes. So the topics might not be as in depth, but we hope to kind of do a little fun one right now. So for episode 8, we want to talk about pet peeves that we have when writing, and we talked in our Discord server, which we'll put the link below. We talked about in our Discord server some ideas about what people had in minds of pet peeves that they wanted us to address, and we're just going to be going over them and talking about what we think about them. And so for our quote of the week, we have one by Roald Dahl, which is a children's book writer or poet.
Yeah, Roald Dahl, children's author, wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and BFG and many of those.
And James and the Giant Peach.
Yep.
Thank you. You're our savior. Oh, wait, he's British. That's how you know him, of course.
Yep.
Yes. And so our quote of the week comes from Roald Dahl, who said, "I don't care if a reader hates one of my stories, just as long as he finishes the book." And I think this week, in terms of pet peeves, I think it really applies because, especially for me as well, I want you to finish my book. I want you to be interested the whole way through, and I want you to enjoy it as well. But if too many pet peeves, I guess, or things that are or appear so often that annoy you to the point that you want to stop reading the book before you reach the end, then you practically, it's not necessarily you failed as an author, but you have failed to achieve what you intended to do as an author, which is to spread your story with other readers. And so as a result, even if whether we hate it or not, as long as they finish the book, that's no problem. But not finishing the book is a completely different issue whatsoever. So, first pet peeve that we are going to be getting to is the damsel in distress trope. I don't necessarily use this one that much, so if any of you guys got anything you want to talk about, what exactly you find annoying about the damsel in distress?
So, damsel in distress, a word cannot express how upset it makes me. I hate the idea that only women tends to be in like a weak point. And watching a lot of K-dramas, I see that some shows stray away from that. Like maybe they make the female lead spunky. Like for instance, he is psychometric. The girl, she has a troubling past, but she doesn't like let those hardships make her seem like a weak woman. She's like actually rather strong. She has a strong character. And honestly, when people put it in their stories, it's like, to me, it feels kind of sexist in a way. Because I mean, like, I can name a lot of men who was at a weak point and required somebody else, like, in a separate gender, opposite gender, my fault. And, like, they need to get picked back up. Because sometimes, it happens.
And I mean, damsel in distress is kind of ingrained in storytelling history. Like, it goes all the way back to the ancient Greek times with, like, the Greek myths with the hero and the love interest, which is stereotypically a female who is in trouble in some way or another. Honestly, you can name a lot of them. Perseus and the task to slay Medusa, in which he had to save Andromeda from being consumed by some sea monster. There was Theseus. Yes, Theseus and the Minotaur. He had to save Ariadne from her father, kinda. It's a bit weird. But yeah, damsel in distress is such a common one. and we don't really think to question it. And so, especially now in this day and age when everyone's kind of getting more and more liberal, it starts to become more noticeable, and people kind of more will want to stray away from that a lot more. A really good example of damsel in distress, but flipped around, is the webtoon Girls of the Wilds, which is essentially, it just takes the stereotypes and flips them. It's about this one guy who ends up in a mixed school that had just recently changed from an all-girls school. And what's so special about this high school is that it's a martial arts school. And so all the girls there are specialists in one form or another, and this kind of weak, pathetic guy is trying to provide for his two siblings. His parents, I don't remember what happened to them, but he gets the girls to train him, and everyone's hitting on him. So it's kind of like a reverse harem or something like that. Just, I guess one thing I want to add before we continue is these are just pet peeves that we have, just things that kind of irritate us as that we see in writing. And if your story has one of it, it's all right. It's on everything, tropes included, because some of these are tropes. It really depends on how you use the tropes, because as I said earlier, Girls of the Wild took the trope of girls in distress and they went in the opposite direction. They flipped the stereotypes of all the main characters, and they just played it with a different scenario. And so in a way, it's a play with their originality, and they came up with this idea of it going the opposite direction. And so that's even more engaging because we haven't really seen a story like that before, and you just kind of want to keep reading to see where it's going. So yeah, on to our next trope, if no one else has anything to add, is the CEO trope, or as one of our Discorders, 13, called it, the unrealistic MC. I know GotNoJams said a bit about this, talked about it a bit on the Discord, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I just don't like how there's no sort of growth in the main character. Like, he already starts with everything he could ever want, and it just seems too unrelatable for me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree with that. And so I kind of touched upon this trope in our character development podcast, in which if they start at the tippy top, then where else do they go? Unless you can talk about how him at being at the tippy top has the drawbacks, and he's suffering from the drawbacks, and you show how it looks like he has it all, but he feels like he doesn't have any of it. That's just an idea that you could potentially like kind of go in a roundabout way. So situationally, he is perfect in a way, but mentally, emotionally, not really. Y'all feel free to jump in. I talk almost all the time.
Well, now that we mentioned CEO trope, there is a Korean drama based off a webtoon called What's Wrong with Secretary Kim. And it's a story about, well, he's not the CEO, but he's the vice chairman. And he's a perfectionist. He basically seemed like a perfect kind of person. But by the time you get to the end of the story, you're going to, you find out all his weaknesses, his past and everything. So one way you could, one way you can avoid CEO tropes would be give them something, tell the reader something that they don't know. Okay, he's perfect. Okay, he's rich. But what do they don't know? Maybe his history, maybe his family, maybe he was neglected, maybe he was abused, maybe he lived in his older brother's shadow, maybe he was exiled in the show called The Heirs. There's a lot of things you can do with a CEO trope. I mean, to avoid a CEO trope, but I see a lot of people sort of stray away from it. I watch a lot of drama too.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of did a bit of that in my Art of the Con. Kind of took the CEO trope and just dropped it in a way. I was thinking about what Mark was just saying about it was not relatable. R.L. Stine, a famous horror/thriller author for children's, he talks about panning to the right type of audience with your story. R.L. Stine said, and I quote, "Think about the age of the audience constantly. My big rule for writing middle school horror is they have to know it is a fantasy. The real world cannot interfere. There is no divorce, no guns, no one ever dies. Once you've established that, you can pretty much go pretty far with the scares. Writing for teens is kind of the opposite. It has to be very real. They have to believe this is happening." And so I guess from what I'm seeing on the Discords, a lot of us are about high school age, if not older. And so in that case, you probably want to cater to the latter that we just addressed. It has to be more realistic. It has to feel authentic. And so I think that's kind of one of the bigger things that I've seen so far. And chatting with some of the younger Discord users, you can definitely see it in the writing style that it's very hyper fictional, like very Superman kind of tropey. Yeah. And again, having imperfect characters is a good way to foster development throughout your story, and you can grow and you watch the characters grow. Anything else, guys?
I agree. What makes a story more interesting is not simply what's on the surface, but what's under it. I think when I was reading your article, and also I was reading Record Breaker too, there were like a couple of things on the surface. Like I'm like just reading it, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I'm gonna keep going. And then comes to find out at the end, and a lot of times like you catch it in the beginning too, but you don't see it as important. Which when that kind of thing happens, that makes the plot twist even better. So it's like, okay, these are these characters. They're pretty interesting. Oh snap, this happened. This person got shot. This person got injured. You know, it's stuff like that. Is when it builds up to that point, I feel like that's what keeps me involved in a story. It makes me keep reading it.
Mark, any final words on the CEO trope or the unrealistic main character trope?
An unrealistic trope I'd go for is if it's an ex-reader bumping into a member of a group on the street, I guess, and then somehow becoming their friend. It's just really weird for me.
Another one we did not have on our list, but that's a good one that I didn't really think about before. Yeah, it's just kind of unrealistic, but it does kind of get the ball rolling because that's kind of like the whole point of the story.
Yeah.
What would you guys suggest? What would be a good organic way to like the main character meeting or the reader insert meeting an idol or something like that?
An organic way. I guess they work together on something. Like a sponsorship deal between companies, I guess. That could work.
That's an interesting way. I've never really seen that. It's mostly been like they're either a producer, a songwriter, or a trainee, or some other idol. They always put them with like people like putting them like the big name ones, like the 10th member of Twice, and it's the male one, and I'm just like, whoa, where is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that those ones are a bit odd, but yeah.
A lot of good ways. Honestly, JT, you could probably relate. I mean, even though we're going to quarantine right now, but you know how you got the ticket to see the little concert thing?
Oh
like
yeah,
maybe you met the idol backstage because you had like the golden ticket. If we're gonna like say it like that, fan signings happen. That's a lot of ways. People just think, "Oh, this is so uninteresting," but sometimes uninteresting things can be interesting. Depends on what happens when it happens.
Trying to think of a way to like right now in my brain, I'm like, how can I use this right now? On to the next one. Unlucky 13 suggests the instant fall in love. I guess when he says that, I think he's talking about love at first sight. I think it really depends on the character of the reader insert or the main character, because honestly, I have never experienced this before, nor have I really seen its effect in real life. It's more like a story kind of thing. And also in terms of idols, it's going to get really hard to be able to justify to that idol in particular how it was for them, as in terms of like for being them instead of being the idol, because that's one of the hardest things I see a lot of people trying to tackle in their stories. It's a bit weird, to be honest.
I think with the love at first sight, it would only work if you look for the personality type, like the MBTI, and research how they actually fall in love with people, like of an idol, maybe.
That is actually a really good idea. I think we might have brought it up in the previous podcast. MBTI, if you don't know, are the 16 personality types under the Myers-Briggs test. Everybody in one form or another falls into one of the categories. In fact, I think Twice recently had a series on their V-Live in which each of them took the test and shared their result. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I never really thought about using it that way.
Love at first sight is a very hard thing to do.
And to
Like,
justify.
yeah, like you will have to legitimately be looking for a certain person with a certain build, with a certain everything. You will have to be someone who only looks at visuals, not much personality. But having characters fall in love like that in the beginning is interesting because maybe they find out that this person isn't as all good. Oh, can't even English. Maybe they find out that this person isn't as good as they thought they would be. Maybe they're a psychopath. You know, looks are deceiving.
It kind of reminded me of the introduction to Tokyo Ghoul, where the main character meets that girl for the first time, and then turns out she is a flesh-craving creature. But like, yeah, it is very superficial. Then it becomes really difficult to like justify like personality and other attributes of their person instead of their physical attributes. Another one suggested by Mark: no originality in names of places. Like if there's one set in school that's usually JYP hires something along those lines. Oh, so this one is originality in terms of naming locations. And you see this a lot, especially in like school, high school or school AUs where they name the school like K-pop high or JYP high or YG high school or whatever. But yeah, and it's just like, I get how you named it, but it's just lacking that, certain appeal. For example, I'm not sure if anybody really noticed, but I kind of explained it in the podcast suggestion channel on our Discord server with Mark on how I created my name, the YGM Corpse. And I'm not going to say it here because if you haven't already, you guys should go check it out and figure it out yourselves. I'll be glad to hear and know what you're thinking.
All right, well, with the name thing, I mean, I remember when I was first coming up with the idol project idea, and I was talking to you about like names,
Oh, yeah.
and one thing from that conversation that I did learn, because I ended up I ended up having another idea where I could use a name at, was when I made this. It's gonna come out like maybe next year, maybe the year after, depending on the way things are going. But in another story or another project that I'm working on, the school is designed to prepare students for the idol world, like prepare them for auditions and stuff, kind of stuff that K-pop camps do. By the way, those things exist. I just found out. And instead of calling it K-pop U, something like that, I ended up watching this drama called Dream High, where this school is called like Kirin Arts High School. Now, why is it called that? I don't know, but it gave me an idea. And so I ended up coming up with Pegasus Arts High School. And the reason why it's called that, because the teachers and everything, the program is designed to help these students grow their wings and soar within the K-pop industry. So I was like, okay, Pegasus, horses, wings, and I ran with it.
That's a pretty good one. So
Seems
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably do one more.
I have one about age gaps.
Age gaps.
Yeah.
In what sense? Because there's always going to be an age gap.
Yeah, it's like, and when people write their high school books, they tend to put the entire idol group in the story, and like they're somehow all in the same grade. And that literally cannot happen. If Jin is 27 and Jungkook is 22, how are they both freshmen? How are they both seniors?
Personally, I don't find it that much as a pet peeve because it's the readers or the authors trying to find a way to justify them being in the same place, which I understand. But like, yeah, not allowing that to cross over may not be a big thing for them. But in terms of my case, it's their story. I don't know how to explain it. It really depends on the author in that case, because I like to, in terms of with my character in my stories or in my characters, I try to stay away from the realistic world as much as possible. Hence, criminal K-pop idols. But
I think I have a good idea what you mean. Like, Sometimes the age isn't mentioned.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Like sometimes the age isn't mentioned, so you shouldn't just assume that there's going to be an age gap. Like, because unless they mention the age here, I can understand why it wouldn't be a pet peeve because you have to overthink to think about the age gap, which is something I do pretty often.
I think the reason why I don't perceive it as that much of a pet peeve is because it's the whole thing is fiction anyway, you
Mm,
know, because the whole idea of these stories is that they're not real and they're just written forms of our imagination, ideas that we come up with that we want to put onto paper. And so in order to do that, we do have to bend some rules in reality and all that.
do you have one
Start
more in
wrapping it
there?
up. Oh, dude, I have a whole freaking list that we didn't even touch this week.
Uh,
This is going to be a long series, man.
do you want to wrap it up? Or do you want to do like one more?
Jay, you got one?
Let's
It's
see.
got a whole freaking list.
Did we already
Well,
talk about like relationships that happen? I think we talked about relationships happening out of nowhere. Um,
Oh, what do you mean by that? We can go into depth right now.
like a bully. Like I read this recently.
Oh
It's
boy.
probably not as
Bully
big, but
stories.
yeah, I would say I hate bully stories where like I'm bullying you because I actually like you on the inside. Nobody does that. Literally, no one
Actually, well,
does that.
some people, it's not very common in today's society, but you do see it a lot in like manga and anime, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people get inspiration from there. Um,
Shame.
it does happen. I think it's not really bullying. I think what happens is that it's perceived as bullying from the
Mm,
victim, but I think the aggressor interprets it more as teasing when they're playing
mm,
with them. It really needs it, that kind of story really depends on how the authors write it.
mm. All right, so what you got on your list, huh? What is
The
that?
list, dude, it's so long. It's so long. It's just
Surprise
like
me.
ways people write and all that. Let's see, which one should I go for? I have here written, which was none other than dot dot dot. It's just a writing pet peeve that I just personally really don't like. It's just a lot of telling, like from what we talked about last week with show don't tell, um, which was none other than it's this weird sound. It just sounds really weird to me in my head, and it just elongates sentences. Like keep them short, nice and simple. If you don't need this, please don't use it. It just personally mind boggles me. I just don't like it.
Okay.
That's not really like there's like
Uh,
no evidence backing that up. It's just a personal preference.
well,
It
that
just
is a
sounds
pet peeve,
weird.
though.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we've reached the end. We're trying to keep everything under around 30 minutes, give or take. So we're gonna be this one's probably gonna be a little under 30 minutes or around 30 minutes, but we're gonna try to cut it down. You know, we're not done. We've barely scratched the surface of our list. There will definitely be more episodes out there in regards to our pet peeves and that we will discuss. Um, so good vibe checks. Anything awesome happened to you guys lately? I feel like a teacher in like this Zoom call because it feels like I have to call on you guys to make you guys talk. But
Nobody's raising
Mark,
their hand, so
yeah.
you go first. I can actually go first.
All right, Jay,
Um,
yeah, go.
so this week I started working at school.
Mhm.
Um, I'm actually the only student worker now, so I have the responsibility of going to all five departments and helping out, which is fun.
How
I
much is
enjoy
your
that.
pay?
$10 an hour.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
At $10 an hour.
Oh, that's not
Hour.
bad. That's pretty good.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good pay. What about you, Mark?
And yeah.
Oh, sorry, unless you weren't done. My bad.
Oh, no, I was just saying, and yeah, that was it.
Yeah, what about you, Mark? It looks like for you, school hasn't started, so I guess that's a good thing.
I actually have something really similar, to be honest. I recently just finished work helping out at a summer school at my school for kids. Yeah,
Yeah, you were talking about
actually
that.
pays the same as what Jay's did.
Well, that sounds nice. Haven't been doing much work lately. Well, I feel terrible now. um, yeah, well, in my case, I'm probably focusing on school a lot more now than ever because I have too many STEM classes, so that's not a good vibe. But I found in my Calculus 3 class an old friend of mine that I have not seen since lower elementary school. That would be when I was 8. So I haven't seen him in about a decade. And I found him in my math class, which is super dope.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're gonna try to have
Mine's-
lunch someday when I end up back on campus.
Have
Yeah,
you
it could-
guys opened your campus yet or no?
Oh, it's open, and it's terrible.
Oh.
2 dorms have already got COVID clusters already, and it's not good.
Like it here.
How are your campus? How's your campus, Jay?
It's open. They put ionizers and everything in all the buildings. But I'm like, you guys should have just kept school closed. Just keep it closed.
Yeah, might have been easier that way.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you have enjoyed us so far, you can find our other podcasts on Anchor, which is our main distributor, and they distribute it to Overcast, Pocket Casts, Breaker, Radio Public, Spotify, Apple, and so much more. We upload manually every week to our YouTube, so likes, comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear your good vibes and anything interesting that's been happening to you, writing-wise or in your general life. We have a Discord server now, which has been very active, and all this is probably my 2nd week on. I think it's safe to say that I'm officially addicted. I'm on there way too much. Again, all of our information will be down in the description below or wherever you're finding this. The Discord will come out in the YouTube one in the very least. I've also stopped uploading to our blog because it's just way too much of a hassle to keep sending stuff to all of our platforms. So Instagram, Wattpad, YouTube, our newsletter. There's just a lot of things that I have to keep sending out to. So I'm kind of right now limiting it to Discord, our email newsletter, and maybe our Instagram. I don't know. It's still a lot, but anyway, please support us. We are just college students or high school students who are just trying to help everybody else here in terms of writing.
So thanks again, guys, for dropping by, settling down, listening to us talk. We really appreciate everyone who comes on, those who messages us. Oh God, I said it right the first time. Who messages?
Oh, you were born in America. You shouldn't have this language defect.
I'm Southern. Leave me alone. I'm in the deep South. But thank you guys for dropping by, messaging us on Wattpad, on our Twitter, GotNoJams. We tend to talk on Twitters. Yeah. If you want to contact us privately, you can always catch us on our Wattpad channels, profiles. Mine's is kpopper_writer17. That's KPOPER_WRITER17.
I really don't think we need to spell it out for them, but yeah. Mine is K of pop once. It'll be in the description below. And GotNoJams if you want to include yours too.
Yeah, GotNoJams 0613.
Once again, thank you everybody. Hope you all have a good week, weekend, day, night, depending. I don't know. Yeah,
wherever
bye.
you are.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, y'all.